shall I go? What shall I do?
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
Behave yourselves!
Hello, YouTubers out there. This is Jerry Saravia at the movies. So, the Oscars took place for 2024. Oppenheimer, no big surprise. Usually, it's no big surprise what wins Best Picture. I think the biggest upset that I can recall was back in 1999 for the 1998 Oscar-nominated Best Picture Oscar-nominated films. That would have been Shakespeare in Love that won over Saving Private Ryan. So, other than that, usually it's no big surprise what wins the Best Picture. Sometimes, I guess, maybe there have been a couple of odd ones ever since then. Oppenheimer, I kind of imagined, would win. The other nominated films are The Holdovers, American Fiction, The Zone of Interest, which was also nominated for Best International Film. They don't call it Best Foreign Film anymore. Barbie, of course, Oppenheimer, Poor Things, Past Lives, Anatomy of a Fall, Killers of the Flower Moon, and Maestro. Out of all these, the ones I've seen are American Fiction, which is an American classic as far as I'm concerned. I've discussed this on the show. The Holdovers, which I've also discussed, I think is also another American classic. Barbie, which is a very good movie. I wouldn't have picked that necessarily as one of the best pictures of the year. I remember when there used to be 5 Best Picture nominees, and years before that, I do believe they had 10. Now we're back to 10 again. Oppenheimer's a very good film. I'm not sure it was really the best picture of the year, but, you know, apples and oranges, whatever, with everything else on this list. And the only other one I saw was Killers of the Flower Moon. I want to mention Killers of the Flower Moon because I am a Martin Scorsese fanatic at this point. I've been following his career for quite some time and have seen virtually every film of his. And the only reason I mention this is because Lily Gladstone did not win Best Actress for Killers of the Flower Moon. Now, she is historically the first Native American woman ever to be nominated for an Oscar. And she won the Golden Globe, and she's certainly been a critic's darling, so to speak. The critics like her. For the most part, they have been big fans of her work in this film. If anyone mentions this film, they always highlight Lily Gladstone. So, here's the kicker with Martin Scorsese. There are 3 films of his. Gangs of New York, which was nominated back in the day. The Irishman, and now Killers of the Flower Moon. All 3 of these films have had 10 nominations each and no wins. So, the only time that Scorsese ever got a Best Picture win was for The Departed, when he should have gotten it really for Raging Bull, possibly, definitely Taxi Driver, and I think a couple of other films where he really deserved it, certainly Goodfellas. So this film, Killers of the Flower Moon, I'm not saying it was the best film of the year. I've kind of changed my view on these things. I consider it really one of my 3 favorites of the year. The other 2 are The Holdovers and American Fiction that I've seen. But Lily Gladstone, she so informs Killers of the Flower Moon. She's the heart and soul of that film. When I came away from that film was her performance. There are other people that are terrific in it, certainly Robert De Niro, Leonardo DiCaprio, and so on. Various other actors, really stellar supporting cast for sure. And nothing against Emma Stone. I didn't see Poor Things, so I can't comment. But, and again, I don't know about the best. You know, this is always a difficult thing to really categorize. I mean, who you consider the best is really a subjective opinion. But Lily Gladstone it was so raw and so nuanced. It's such an amazing work that I just felt, sure, she was nominated, but she probably should have won for that film. But I think that the reason she didn't win, I think, could be for 3 different reasons. One, this is about a time in history that most people do not look back on with anything except a devastating feeling over it. It certainly was devastating. It happened. It's based on a book, which I've discussed on this show, or on this channel rather. So there's nothing comforting about Killers of the Flower Moon. You don't watch that film, you're not comforted by it. It's also dealing with a part of history maybe most people would like to forget, but you have to deal with it. Also, the plight of Native Americans deserves much more depth, in-depth discussion than it has been getting, for sure. And also, Scorsese's films, by and large, almost always, they can be quite devastating to watch, or they're hard to watch. It's not easy on the eyes or the ears. And he doesn't make it easy for the audience. He doesn't sugarcoat anything. He doesn't compromise. You don't watch his films and say, yeah, this could have been by any director, or they are sugarcoating history, or they're making light of many of what happened. It's inaccurate, that kind of thing. That doesn't necessarily befall Scorsese. Scorsese's never really done a film like this before, certainly not in this part of history. But there's no comfort level at the film. The film is discomforting. It's a very watchable film. Not easy to process. Not easy to digest. And Scorsese's films, by and large, are that. And I wouldn't say by design, that's just the way he does it. He's sort of like the equivalent of a punk rock director, in the sense that punk is always blunt, in your face, and no sentimentality. And I think that defines Martin Scorsese to a T. I think his warmest film has been probably Hugo. That was over 10 years ago. He is just not... he's not touchy-feely. Also, it's interesting, the film is not exactly emotionally devastating. It is sort of... it's raw. It's just very raw. It doesn't keep you at a distance, but it's raw. Goodfellas was raw. Taxi Driver was raw. Raging Bull was certainly very raw. This has more in common, really, with Raging Bull in terms of how one is expected to feel. And also, there's this thing still that I find a lot of American audiences have this as a final say on a film, that it has to make you cry at the end. If a film makes you cry at the end and you get teary-eyed, it must be a great movie. And although certainly, if a film is honest with its emotional, with its emotion, whether it's the story or the characters, you may feel that, of course. But Scorsese is really just like Stanley Kubrick. They just keep you... It's not unfeeling, but it's still raw and unsettling. And I think that may be why Lily Gladstone did not win. She did not win because she was giving a performance about an ostracized people. And currently we do have people who are ostracized. And I think that just doesn't sit well with voters. I'm not really telling you why voters didn't pick Lily Gladstone at the very least. I knew the film wasn't going to win Best Picture. I knew he wasn't going to win Best Director. And it almost, at this point, doesn't even matter. I mean, Scorsese is a director who is highly regarded, has been for now close to, well, let's put it this way, when Who's That Knocking My Door was released in 1967, we're approaching 50 years of Martin Scorsese. It's half a century of this man. And, of course, there are the quibbles out there, as there have been, when the film was released, that it should have been made by somebody who was an Osage native, as if that was the beginning and end of that picture, that its success. I think that he chose to, as I said, Molly Burkhart informs that film. She really does. She is the story, and she is the story for any Native American. And perhaps Hollywood is just not really ready to understand the tragedy leveled and the genocide leveled at these people who were here first in America, the real Native Americans. So, I don't know. Those are just my thoughts. This may be actually a political decision. And had Lily Gladstone appeared in, say, Dances with Wolves, which won Best Picture back in 1990 at the 91 Oscars, that would have been really something. But even in those politically correct days, they weren't looking to honor anybody who was indigenous, let alone nominate them. It was very rare in those days. So this is, of course, a very different film from Dances with Wolves, and I think that's the issue. So who knows? He's hard-edged. Scorsese is hard-edged. He's unsentimental, and he's basically a punk rock director. And I think at heart he always will be. I'll leave it at this quote, which is really relating to the urban street stories that Scorsese is most famous for, particularly Goodfellas. And I do believe it was Richard Corliss who said this from Time magazine, who passed away a while ago, but he said about Bringing Out the Dead, he said, Scorsese's, and I'm paraphrasing, his heart is in the streets of New York. He is there to tell you the raw honesty of the streets. That's what he was born to do. And I think that he has taken what he has seen in the streets as a kid, Scorsese, and transplanted that to what he envisions happened in this Western of sorts. And I think he looks at it with an unblinking eye. That disturbs people, because he's not willing to make concessions for the audience. He just says, this is what it is, this is what happened. Deal with it. Humanity is often depraved and greedy, and he's interested in exposing the bullshit. So, there you go. That's what I think. But lend me your thoughts. Tell me what you think about the Oscars 2024, specifically about Killers of the Flower Moon and Lily Gladstone. Do you think that this is a major upset? Or, I think she is going to have a pretty good career as an actress. I certainly hope so. I hope it doesn't fall under, what happened to Lupita Nyong'o, who I think eventually started to do other roles, but it took some time. She wasn't being hired for anything, even after doing the, The Force Awakens, I guess, Star Wars The Force Awakens? No, prior to that, she did a 12 Years a Slave. So, and that was also a very great performance. So lend me your thoughts. Tell me what you think. Do you think Emma Stone deserved it, or do you think Lily should have gotten it for sure? And do you agree with the reasons why the film did not, or her performance mostly, didn't get the recognition it really deserved as far as a win? So, let me your thoughts. If you haven't subscribed already to my channel, please do. And if you are a subscriber, please hit the notification bell right up there for future uploads. That's all I got to say about that. This is Jerry Saravia, The Movies, signing off.